We are back again with another week of previewing the prominent college teams and the NFL games for the state of Florida for Florida Football Insiders. I'm TJ Rives. He's Todd Grasley. You've elevated your game once again this week with me.
Another week, another level, much like the teams did in Florida this weekend.
Okay, so we're going to get to the schedule of what we have first in college for this week. 4 of the 5 prominent teams are going to be in action. You probably know by now UCF, a winner last week over South Carolina State, not playing this week because of Hurricane Florence. Their game at North Carolina canceled, more than likely won't be made up, so that's going to hamper them. You're taking a look at the other games that are going to be played, including the noon ones with Florida State against Syracuse, also Miami and Toledo. Then later in the day, USF at Illinois, and Florida playing host to Colorado State in a game that really features their former coach's program, Jim McElwain. They're playing this game because they had to play Colorado State as part of the deal. McElwain now gone. The Gators off the tough loss last week. So, Todd, as we bring you back in, I know you're a big UCF guy, and this is a game that was probably very winnable for them against a Power 5 team, but it's not going to be played.
Yeah, they needed this one on their schedule to boost that Power 5 schedule like you mentioned. And a lot of talk, should they play Nebraska? Nebraska has an open week. UCF later on during the road. Scott Frost coming back, facing his alma mater. Will that happen? I saw a Facebook post or a social media post by Scott Frost. He said he would hate to see one of his defensive ends blindside the quarterback. I don't know if that was a cheap shot at McCollum. You know, those guys have a great relationship. But I think every UCF fan wants to see it happen, but I don't think it will.
Well, here's the thing. They both have the same open date of October the 27th. But in this instance, Nebraska also lost a game at the beginning of the year. They had a lightning thunderstorm situation, canceled their game with Akron, so they need a 12th game, just like UCF does. The question becomes, would UCF want to go play at Nebraska? And you don't think there's any way that happens?
No, I don't think they go out there, and I think Frost is a little too close to home. You know, he would hate to see Mackenzie Milton or somebody else go out at the hands of one of his players.
And again, now UCF might be all in favor of playing them. I don't know if they play them in Lincoln or not. Doubtful that it would happen, but just keep that in mind if the two programs come together.
Great storyline nonetheless.
Oh yeah, and the athletic director, Danny White, has a great relationship with Frost. Remember, Frost came back and coached the Peach Bowl game after he took the Nebraska job. Don't know that it will happen, but more than likely, UCF will be without a game coming up, a 12th game coming up later on this year.
TJ, a game that matters this week. FSU heads up to the Carrier Dome to face Syracuse, and one of their top quarterbacks, who's also a dual threat on the ground game, Eric Dungy, no relation to Tony Dungy. And for the Noles, Willie Taggart, definitely under fire, a tough week 1. Last week, the Noles barely beat Samford, coming from behind in the 4th quarter. DeAndre Francois throwing a touchdown late, and then a pick 6 to seal the deal for the Noles as they win 36-26. While the FSU faithful might not be jumping ship just yet, the Gator fans, well, they're looking for a way out after a loss to Kentucky last week, 27-16. It was the first time the Gators lost to the Wildcats in 31 years. 1986 was the year. Another great thing that happened in 1986, yours truly was born. The Noles lose one of their top running backs, Darius Lemons. The Clearwater native announced via social media he will transfer. So this week for Florida, they will face Jim McElwain's alma mater, Colorado State, in a home game at the Swamp. Can the Gators bounce back, look ahead, and turn their season around?
Yeah, kind of funny that the honeymoon is already over after 2 games for Dan Mullen, maybe, and they need to look good against Colorado State before playing against Tennessee coming up at Tennessee. That's the game that is looming later in the month on the Gator schedule. Let's take a look at Miami. They're playing Holy Toledo. They're playing in Toledo at noon coming on Saturday. Miami off an easy win last week over Savannah State. Toledo pretty good. Remember, this game a year ago, Toledo was actually leading at the half, and Miami ended up wiping them out in the second half, but Toledo led the game at halftime. So it's interesting that the Canes, Mark Richt, Malik Rozier, all the quarterbacks played last week. They are headed up to Toledo for this matchup, a game that Miami should win. And Todd, what about USF? USF at Illinois, high-scoring win over Georgia Tech. A lot of points in the game last week against Georgia Tech. Bulls now on the road against Lovie Smith and Illinois. Do you have a thought thought about this game?
Yeah, it'll be a great test. Another good quality opponent for the Bulls. And can they go up to Illinois and take the win? I think they can.
Yeah, well, right now for Illinois, Lovie Smith under fire. They did not win a Big Ten game a year ago. Their fan base would consider this a large out-of-conference matchup at home. Bulls won the meeting last year in Tampa. USF trying to be 3-0. And how about Terrence Horn, the speedy kick returner? Not one, but 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns in the first quarter of the game last week. He was the American Conference Special Teams Player of the Week. I don't know who Illinois is going to kick the ball to. I have a pretty good idea of who they're not going to kick off the ball to.
And it's funny you mentioned the name Terrence Horn Jr. My background in track and field. Terrence Horn, one of the top track and field athletes in the state of Florida, coming from South Florida, that Miramar program. And, yeah, he's a speedster, and there's a lot of the guys out there that can't touch him. And if you get the ball in his hands, watch out for him to return a big one.
Yeah, let's see if Illinois kicks the ball to someone else in that matchup. Coming on Saturday afternoon in Champaign. And that leads us to the NFL and the games on Sunday. As we take a look at those, the Miami Dolphins, off of that marathon opening game last week that took 7 hours to play with 2 different weather delays, will travel to New York to play the Jets in a 1 o'clock game. Buccaneers hosting the Eagles. You know I'm part of the Buccaneers radio broadcast. Bucs and Eagles forever linked, with Tampa Bay having won that famous NFC Championship game and then going on to win the Super Bowl back 16 years ago. Now that one an early game at 1 o'clock. And then speaking of Super Bowls, New England went to the Super Bowl last year, beating the Jaguars in the final minutes. This is a rematch game in Jacksonville at 4:25 coming up. Very interesting slate. 2 of the games really have serious implications, let's say, for the postseason maybe down the road for these, Todd. I mean, we're anxious to see this slate of games.
Absolutely, and I think I'm looking forward to the Buccaneers. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick, they're calling it Fitzmagic. I wanted to grow the beard out and leave it out. My wife said to shave it. I think a lot of people are getting on that bandwagon, a lot of people getting on that train, and it'll be interesting to see when Jameis gets back who the quarterback is, and if there's a little controversy there. And it should be an exciting season for the Bucs if they can score 48, 49 points a game.
All right, so again, on that schedule, Dolphins and Buccaneers will be up first, and then the Jaguars coming later in the day.
In Miami, the Dolphins take down the Titans 27-20 in a game that lasted over 7 hours. Started at 1 p.m., ended at 8. Multiple weather delays, multiple lightning strikes caused the game to go on the longest in NFL history. One guy that was a constant back from an ACL injury was Ryan Tannehill, 230 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, also threw 2 picks. Miami travels to New York to face the Jets in a rivalry that's gone on for over 4 decades. We'll see how the Dolphins can come out, especially after a Week 1 win.
And as Todd mentioned, in Tampa Bay, Buccaneers and Eagles, this is an enormous early season game, with the Buccaneers having won the road game at New Orleans last week. Now a chance to be 2-0. Ryan Fitzpatrick was outstanding. Big question mark, Deshaun Jackson. Great game last week. He's in concussion protocol. Can he clear that protocol in time to play in this game? We'll see. The Eagles will go with Nick Foles at quarterback again this week. Carson Wentz is healthy enough to be around in practice, but it's not clear whether he can play in this game. Will he be active or not? Foles is clearly the starter. Going to be hot, going to be muggy, going to be a wild game at Raymond James Stadium coming at 1 o'clock.
The game of the week up in Jacksonville as Tom Brady and the Patriots take on Blake Bortles and the Jaguars. For Jacksonville, they're going to have to establish the running attack. Blake Bortles was the leading rusher last week, more than TJ Yeldon. Leonard Fournette is out, so Yeldon will get the ball. We will see if Jacksonville can avenge their loss in the AFC title game 1 year ago and give it back to the Patriots. I know Jalen Ramsey wants another chance to take on Tom Brady and this New England offense.
You know, the Jaguars were this close a year ago to the Super Bowl until Tom Brady threw that game-winning touchdown pass in the final couple of minutes to Danny Amendola to break their hearts, and now it's a regular season game. It's not a playoff rematch. Super Bowl's not on the line. We'll see how this game – I mean, you talk about tough tickets. This is probably the toughest ticket for a regular season game in Jacksonville in a decade, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. These fans want to see that rematch. It's coming to Jacksonville, and they're stoked and excited. And I know a couple of people are flying those helicopter banners. Who knows what they'll say, but I think Duval will be up there in the sky.
And for the Buccaneers, again, they're going to be a humongous home game for the Bucs, coming up against the Eagles with a chance to be 2-0 and remain tied atop the NFC South. Did you have fun again for another week?
Absolutely, and I think, like you mentioned, mentioned, each week brings another level of excitement. Can the Bucks go to 2-0? Can Jacksonville knock off New England? Should be exciting, and I'm looking forward to Saturday and Sunday.
All right, we're looking forward to the full slate of games for this week. Keep it locked in for the coverage on Florida Football Insiders. For Todd Grasley, I'm TJ Rives. Thanks for being with us.